Waiting for that little like signal of, hey, we're recording.
There it goes.
Good morning. My name is Monica Corda. I'm the Director of Member Relations for the Tech Collective. So we're thrilled to have you here this morning for the Leadership Edge info session. So the Tech Collective, for those of you who don't know, is the IT Industry Association for the state of Rhode Island. But you do not need to be a Rhode Islander, obviously, to join. We have several of you who are very far out of state today joining us. So we're thrilled to have you on board. And what we do is we provide training sessions in cybersecurity, data, professional development, leadership for our members and for the community as well. So we're thrilled to have Jim Scheel here today from Artisan Agility. So Jim has been one of our trainers in the past for a certified Scrum Master, certified product owners, and people have just loved him. So when he brought this opportunity to the table, we had several members who've been asking for leadership training, and we knew that Jim was the right man to deliver this coursework. So he will be sharing with you an overview of what the larger class this fall will look like. I will post the link to that class in the chat, as well as at the end of the session, we'll just put up a one question, just kind of like is this what you were hoping for? Is this what you were looking for? If you would take the moment to answer that, that would be really helpful to us. I would ask that you put yourself on mute if you are not already muted. And at the end of Jim's presentation, we will have Q&A, and then you can unmute and ask away. So at this point, Jim, I will turn it over to you, and we look forward to this presentation.
All right. Thank you, Monica. So good morning, everybody. As you know, my name is Jim Scheel, and I also want to thank you for giving up some of your valuable time. I know that this next hour is going to be a worthwhile return for your time. In my 30 years of managing and leading teams, traveling the world, talking with other successful leaders, doing more than 1,000 training classes to just about 20,000 students, I've learned an awful lot about leadership. Through trial and error, I've pared away a lot of the practices that don't work very well or don't work anymore, leaving me with a fantastic collection of best practices, tips, and even tricks that you can use to become a strong leader. Now, what I want to do is put the slides up here for you, and I'm going to kind of talk my way through these slides. This morning, what I want to do is three things. Number one, I want to tell you why leadership skills have dramatically changed in the last 50 years. I want to give you a sampling of some of the practices and tips that you're going to be able to walk away with today, take them right back to work and start using them right away to start making a big difference. And I also want to show you what you can do to learn. I want to tell you a little bit about what we call the Leadership Edge, which is going to provide a lot of information about leadership, far more than we could possibly get into in this 1 hour. Okay, so where I want to start is right here. Let me ask you a couple of questions, and you don't have to answer. Okay, just think about it. All right, they're rhetorical. Are you so stressed about work that you don't even like going to work anymore? Is your to-do list getting longer even as you work more hours? Are you convinced that you'll never see the bottom of your to-do list? Okay. And one more question. Do you feel like there's more to do in a single day than there are hours in the day? Okay. The biggest problem in today's work environment is that things happen every day that cause what we call a fight or flight response. The fight or flight response is from prehistoric times. And it was meant to provide safety, to provide protection. But in today's environment, that same reaction is kicked in by angry customers, angry bosses, from tight deadlines to unreasonable expectations, from a lack of skills to a lack of tools. Fight or flight was supposed to protect us from a dangerous enemy. The problem is, today, there usually is no enemy. Just a customer, a boss, a coworker, or a deadline. there's no one to run from and no one to fight. And you end up with a body pumped full of adrenaline. Pupils dilate in order to allow the eyes to view surroundings more effectively. Blood flow increases, and even blood clotting factors are increased to reduce blood loss in case of injury. Increased respiration improves the oxygen content in your bloodstream, providing an energy boost, and to respond to the threat, muscles tense, and you may even find yourself shaking, okay? When your body experiences the fight or flight response repeatedly, but with no actual danger, serious health problems can result, okay? Physical results include things like exhaustion, digestive issues, headaches, migraines, overeating, drug and alcohol abuse, hypertension, diabetes, and strokes. But there's also the mental side of it. Anxiety, irritability, lack of motivation, depression. The World Health Organization estimates that workplace stress costs the United States more than $1 trillion per year in lost productivity. And then, of course, you've got the employees that we call disengaged. They're bored. They go through the paces, just barely doing the job. And if you happen to be a boss of one of those bored employees, you're likely finding yourself spending way too much time every day having to tell these folks what to do. They're unwilling to do anything beyond what they've been told to do, and they take responsibility for almost none of the results. Now, this is a serious problem. Disengaged employees cost businesses and organizations about $55 billion in lost productivity every single year. And studies have shown that in any given organization, about 55% of the employees are disengaged. And what that means is they don't really care about doing more than they are asked to do, and they must be routinely told what to do. Scarier, 19% are actively disengaged. Now, these are people that are actually at work, actively working to cause other employees to be disengaged, okay? At your workplace, absolutely, by statistics, you have a few actively disengaged employees right now, making it even harder for you as a leader to accomplish your goals. There may even be names running through your head right now. Employees, coworkers, people that you know are actively disengaged. And these are the people that they complain constantly about customers, about their bosses, about the company, about their jobs. It's incessant. They go on forever. They do only what they must, and no matter what's going on, they're out of the office by quitting time. So what could life be like? If you're like me, what you really want to do when it comes to your life and your career is get stuff done, okay? You want to finish the important work, you want to get your to-do list under control, and you want to have time left over to learn new skills, plan new approaches, identify new strategies. I mean, wouldn't it be nice to have inspired and engaged people working around you? How great would it be if everyone came to work energized and ready to go? Imagine what it would feel like to go through work with a purpose, to know who you are helping and why, and to feel like you've accomplished something by the time you go home for the day. And continue this with me. Imagine teams that take control of their work and attack it without reminders, without constant prompting, without someone looking over their shoulders and making sure they're doing it right or doing it fast enough. Think about what it would be like in an organization where everybody knows their role, where everybody has the information they need and they take responsibility for making most of the daily decisions, where everyone understands what success looks like and takes responsibility for their part in creating it. All of this comes down to strong leadership. The stress, having too much to do, disengaged leadership can be corrected with up-to-date leadership skills, okay? All of those possibilities, going to work with a purpose, having highly productive teams, creating real business value, everyone in the organization owning their part of creating success. All of those outcomes can be created with up-to-date leadership skills. So here's a reality, okay? The world is changing, and it's changing fast. Most, if not all, of the leadership skills that you've learned in the past are old, they're ineffective, or they're just flat out wrong. The world has changed a lot in the last 50 years, and it continues to change at a pace that's faster and faster every day. Leadership skills that most businesses teach today are based on the skills of war heroes and wartime politicians from the 20th century. Okay, people like Roosevelt, Eisenhower, Truman, Patton, Nimitz, they became the models for the people that built companies like Ford, GM, Boeing, and IBM. And as those companies grew larger and larger, thanks to wartime spending, control of information and decisions became isolated to smaller and smaller and smaller groups of executives that then told everyone else what to do. But as I said, the world is changing. Technological advances are driving cultural changes. People are more connected than ever before. The skills people possess today are more and more about knowledge creation and less about manufacturing. In the 20th century, when people left work, they left their tools and their projects behind. Today, when people leave work, their skills and their knowledge go home with them. And customers are changing. Customers now require more than a product that works. They want services, they want relationships, they want support. And they want to know what your business is doing to help the community around them and the world in general. All of these changes require not just a new look at leadership skills, but a new approach to how those skills are learned and kept current. And it's not just the world either. Look at the workforce. Women now make up slightly more than half of the overall workforce in the world. Millennials will make up more than 75% of the workforce by 2024. So right now and every day as we go forward, we have a workforce with very different expectations than they had 10, 15, 20 years ago. There is a greater desire for work that is connected to a real purpose. People don't want to simply do what they're told. They want to know that what they're doing is making a real difference for somebody. And they want to know that what they're doing is making a real difference in the world. There's a greater desire for more flexibility in work arrangements. For example, working remotely 2 or 3 days a week, or working remotely permanently. There's a greater desire for more constructive and more timely feedback. Leaders must be able to coach employees to higher and higher and higher levels of performance. Annual performance reviews are finally being recognized for what they are: unhelpful. There is a greater desire for more responsibility, more opportunities for growth, and much more trust. And what we need are leaders that can meet those challenges. There are a lot of leadership programs out there today that, when completed, will tell you your leadership style. But there's a problem with that. Leadership isn't about your style. Leadership is about the people you lead. Whether we're talking about leading yourself to meet a personal goal or leading a team or an organization, leadership is about mastering a set of skills that allow you to change your style to match the people you lead and the situation you're in. What I want to do is talk about 3 of those tips, those tricks, and how they can help you and your organization immediately, right? Let's start with visionary leadership. Not surprisingly, visionary leadership is about creating and communicating a vision, something that helps you identify what you want to accomplish and how you will know when you've accomplished it. Visions are compelling descriptions of what will be true once you are successful. And think about this. What's your vision? Everyone should have a personal vision. If you don't have a vision, how do you know where you're going? Your personal vision might be to be happy, healthy, loved, and prosperous. Your organization should have a vision too. Maybe your organization's vision is to create a community of people that are successfully managing their own health and living happy lives. Visions are essential for a business, because disengaged employees can become re-engaged when their work has a clear meaning. Visions create a reason for the work beyond just building it, selling it, and making money. As a leader, it is your job to identify the vision and then communicate it again and again and again. Many CEOs actually say, if you aren't repeating your vision enough to be sick of hearing it, you aren't repeating your vision enough. And repeating it's only part of it. You have to also exemplify it. You have to live it. And you have to recognize it when others do the same thing, when they live it as well. And when there's a vision, there's a connection between the employees, what they're doing, and who they're serving. There's a meaning, there's a purpose for doing what they do and a reason to get it done. When there's a vision, employees are much more likely to be engaged. So let's say you create this vision, you're talking about it, you're modeling it, you're doing it, people are starting to get it. You've got more employees that are engaged and fewer that are disengaged. Now we take it to the next step. Inspirational leadership. Now that you've got all these employees engaged and connected to their work and a higher purpose, how do you take the next step and inspire your employees and your teams? Well, inspirational leadership starts with hiring the right people and supporting them with the right mission, goals, and values. And let's start with hiring the right people first. Companies today hire people incorrectly. They hire for skills first and everything else last. I know people with 20 years of clinical experience who get turned down for a job because they only have 3 years of experience with a computer product. Okay, so instead of looking at what they know in terms of the domain, the environment, the people, they look at the tools they use and how good they are at using it. What you end up with, people who are good with the computer but lousy with other people. Okay, and think about that. Think about the people that you've worked with in the past. Okay, and I'm sure you've run into some of those people that they're just so hard to work with, even though they might be brilliant at what they do. So what can you do as a leader? Well, we got to turn that paradigm around. You want to hire for a couple traits before you worry about the skills. Let me tell you what those traits are. The first one is hunger. You want to hire people that are hungry. Okay, when you talk to them, you want to make sure that these people want the job, that they want to stay engaged. And in fact, if they stay engaged, they're more likely to keep everyone else engaged. People who aren't hungry disengage. They get bored, they disengage. And like weeds in a garden, disengagement spreads. The second trait you want to watch for is humility. Hire people who are confident in their skills, but not so much they put everybody else down around them. Hire people who are willing to honestly listen to ideas, even when they believe their idea is better. People who are not humble will cause other employees to lose their inspiration and disengage. The third personality trait is common sense. And let's be really clear about this. Common sense and intelligence are not the same thing. If you hire someone with common sense, they learn how to internalize the vision you set in front of them, and they act every day in accordance with that vision. Hiring people that do not demonstrate common sense will simply leave you with a lot of smart people that act in very stupid ways. You'll spend most of your time as a leader cleaning up problems instead of moving your vision forward. Now, if you've got a candidate that's all those things, they're humble, they're hungry, and they have common sense, you're ready to start talking about skills. If you've got a talented candidate that lacks those personality traits, my recommendation to you would be pass. As they say, it takes a minute to hire the wrong person, but you can easily spend weeks or months regretting it. Now, let's keep this moving. You're hiring the right people. The next thing you want to do as an inspirational leader is to use a framework that helps inspire teams and set them up for success. Missions and visions, let's talk about missions and visions. They get confused a lot, but they really aren't terribly hard to understand. So think of it like this. If you're raising a child, your vision for that child might be for them to grow up healthful, have a great personality, go to a great school, have a fantastic life. Okay, that's a vision. That's the end game, that all those things are true. It's very important to know what success looks like if you're planning to do something like raising a child. But equally important, how do you plan to get them there? Not the detail, the high level stuff. For example, my mission as a parent might be to ensure that I'm there for my child, that I'm listening and exemplifying good morals, that I put a strong focus on exercise, healthful eating, and finishing homework. You see, the vision is where I want to end up. The mission is a high-level description of what I want to do to get there. So if you've got a vision to build a community of people that live a more active life, your team's mission might be to provide the information a person needs to understand how their daily activities affect their health. Now, we've got a mission. Let's move on to goals. People like being challenged. If their goals are achievable and reasonable, if what is expected makes sense and is understandable, people will work hard to achieve those goals. And remember, goals are temporary things. Once a goal is achieved, we can work to raise the bar. We can work with our employees and our teams to raise the bar, set new goals, keep raising the bar in performance. The thing to keep in mind with goals, though, goals need to be owned by the teams, not owned by management. A lot of organizations, management sets the goals, and then the teams, develop dysfunctions to try to achieve those goals. But when you put that on the teams and you say, look, this is your vision, this is our mission, what goals do you need to create that will help us get closer to achieving that vision? They start to own it. They start to become responsible for it. And goals for a team could be things like improving initial product quality. In other words, how do we get high quality done the first time, rather than having to fix a bunch of defects after the software or whatever our product is goes out the door. Another very helpful goal can be a certain number of hours of learning every sprint, every month, every quarter. You see how this works? The vision's the highest level, what our world will look like when we're successful. The mission describes how we plan to act to achieve that vision. Our goals are specific details for this week, this sprint, this month, this quarter. And more importantly, they give us direction for taking daily action on our mission and achieving our vision. Now, I want to throw one more piece in here, and that's the values. I'm sure you all have experience with corporate values, right? They're nice little words. They're put on pretty posters. They're posted up in every conference room and in every long hallway. And we walk past them 100 times a day and forget them entirely, okay? As a leader, it's ironic that one of your most effective tools at getting teams to take ownership of what they do is posted all over the place. They're all over the building. The problem is we don't talk about them enough, okay? We don't connect them to the work. So visions are a very key element in creating inspired teams. When they are properly defined, employees feel more empowered to make decisions and are more accountable for those decisions. This helps employees be able to feel more able to act together and independently to achieve the vision of the organization. Now, I'll give you an example. Disney, they use values like safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency. They even prioritize them in that order to help employees make decisions during the day. So instead of having to call management every time they need permission to do something, Disney employees feel more able to act on their own to serve the guests that are around them. When you work with your team to create values, identify short phrases or single words that are easily understood and can be easily connected to the work being done. For example, a cast member at Disney will stop to do what they are doing to help guests appear to be lost, because courtesy is one of their most important values. They don't have to stop and ask permission. They don't have to worry about someone watching them and saying, oh, you didn't do your job. I saw you over there talking to people. They have values, and those values are real, and they're talked about every day, and they're connected to the work the employees do and the way they do the work. Employees in a department store might have a value like respect, which reminds them to always speak to a customer respectfully, make eye contact, speak clearly, and don't just point them to an aisle, take them to what they're looking for. Employees in an office might have a value like innovation, reminding them to look for new solutions when the old solutions just aren't doing the job. Innovation also reminds employees that management supports trying something different when a better outcome can be achieved. And also, as a leader, remember, recognition is a very important tool for leaders to further encourage people to keep achieving those goals and living those values. And I'm not talking about rewards and money and big stuff. Short little thank you notes, handwritten, praising an employee in front of other employees, rewarding, and even rewarding yourself for a goal achieved can go a long way toward inspiring, motivating, and further engaging your employees. Let's turn to one more tip here for you. Attention focusing techniques. Focus, or really I should say the lack of focus, is probably one of the biggest productivity killers facing your teams and your organizations right now, okay? It may seem hard to believe, but we are currently subjected to thousands of attempts. Actually, I think the last time the number was put together is something on the order of 25,000 attempts to get your attention every single day, okay? Advertisements on the TV, on the radio, on Pandora, on Sirius, when you browse a website, okay? Billboards on the road. All of these are attempts to interrupt you and get your attention. Notifications on your phone, your computer, your watch, people walking past your window, your office door, the clock on the wall. All of these things they're inevitable, they're inescapable. And think about it like this, in just the last half hour, okay? In just the last half hour, and you don't have to answer this, just think about it. What has happened already that tried to pull your attention away from this presentation? I'll bet all of you have already dealt with something. A buzz, a ding, a bang, a bang, a window on your screen. It's already happened. Was it someone else that did it? Or was it you just interrupting yourself? Happens all the time. Some stray thought that causes you to, for just a moment, look away to something else. Whether it's you or your teams, interruptions cause two really, really big problems. Number one, they can double and even triple your error rate. Think about most of the defects that you've watched software development teams or product development teams solve over the last, well, you name it, 2 years, 5 years, your career. Think about this. How many of those defects have been found, solved, and somewhere along the line you hear something like, oh my God, what was I thinking when I did that? Most defects are not caused by people who don't know what they're doing. They're caused by people that are being interrupted while they're trying to do it. The second thing are those interruptions. They cause what we call context switches. Now, a lot of people call that multitasking. And the funny thing about multitasking is it's not possible to do. The brain can't do multiple things at the same time. It isn't built to do it, okay? It's incapable of doing it. It's also rather interesting. When surveyed, the people that believe they are the best multitaskers actually are the least productive. And I'll give you one other fact. It's a little out there, so just bear with me. But studies have shown that the use of marijuana, so if you're high on marijuana, okay, I told you it'd be a little out there, your effective IQ is lowered by 3 points. If you're multitasking, your effective IQ is lowered by 10 points, okay? So when we have people that are trying to work on 400 things at the same time, I mean, I've looked at people's calendars and just said, how do you get work done? Okay, and I remember my own calendar when I worked at Siemens years ago. In those last couple of years as a manager, double, triple booked. How do you get anything done? And worse than that, do you realize? Well, I didn't at the time, and I've come to realize that my ability to get work done, not just get it done, but do it well, was destroyed by that type of an environment. So let's go back to that multitasking thing for a minute. I got myself on a tangent with the marijuana comment there. But there was a study done by the UC Irvine, and what they discovered was that while people do appear to go from task A to task B and then back to task A, The reality is when you go back to task A, you're looking at an average of 23.5 minutes to get back to the mental state you were in before you were interrupted. And that's even assuming you have 23.5 minutes to get back to that state. Not every interruption causes a context switch, but a lot of them do. And what it comes down, excuse me, what it comes down to is honestly frightening. The typical team, the typical individual employee loses between 2 and 4 hours a day in context switching costs. Okay, that is a lot of time. Okay, imagine all of your teams, all of these years, losing between a quarter of their day and a half of their day every single day. Now, we've known for years that teams get more done when they focus on one thing at a time to completion. But most organizations suffer from what you might call an attention deficit disorder. If there are 10 major initiatives on the plan, most organizations will attempt to get all 10 of them started at the same time. So, what can you do as a leader? Well, let's talk about that to-do list. All right. Everyone complains about how long their to-do lists are, but have you ever noticed that you never get to the bottom of your to-do list? And even though you never get to the bottom of that to-do list, the world doesn't end. Things keep happening, right? You got to be careful with those to-do lists. They are a trap. They collect work that pretends to be valuable and important. And a lot of it isn't, okay? Your work every week should be made up of 2 or 3 really important goals and a short list of less important but less important tasks that can be batched together and done in a couple hours during the week. So here's what I'd recommend for you. Okay, this is what I do, and a lot of people I've taught are doing, and they love it. When you begin your week, identify your top 2 or 3 goals, the things you absolutely have to address this week. And when you begin each day, block time on your calendar. Block time on your schedule to address those goals, one at a time throughout the day. And what I want to recommend that you do is I want you to use time boxes of between 20 and 90 minutes. Not more than 90, not less than 20, okay? Depending on the work. If you need a lot of time, go all the way up to 90 minutes. Although it may take you a while. This takes practice, okay? You're going to see why in just a second. It takes practice to get all the way up to 90. So you might want to start on the shorter side. And in between those time boxes, give yourself a short break. Okay, about 5 minutes for every 30 in the time box. You don't have to go outside, clear your head. You could if you want to, but you can just go do something else for a couple minutes. Go talk to an employee, go talk to a colleague, go talk to somebody. Clear your head of what you were doing, and then come back and start another time box. And what you will find is you're going to become a lot more productive. But there are some rules. When you're in a time box, avoid all other sources of interruption. Okay? Shut down all the other applications on your computer, turn off the notifications, silence your phone. I almost said shut down your phone. You don't have to do that. Silence your phone, turn off the notifications, shut your office door if you have one, put the headphones on if you've got them to let everybody know that you are in a time box. Don't let anybody interrupt you unless they're a customer or what they need is a lot more important than what you're doing. Okay, and you have to be the judge of that. What's a lot more important? And here's the hard part. Set a countdown timer when you're on that time box. Okay, put it on your phone, put it on an app on your computer, whatever you want to do. And what you're going to notice is you're going to do this work, whatever you decide to do in this time box, and you're going to allow yourself to be distracted by a text message, by something that appeared on the browser screen that you were looking at. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to look at the timer. I normally have mine up here in the corner of the screen. That's why I keep pointing there. Look at the timer. Is it at 0? No? Forget it. Keep going. Do what you're doing. Do what you're supposed to do, okay? If you've ever worked the weekend between Christmas and New Year's, you might be starting to get a hint at what I'm going at here. There is a psychological state that you can reach that's called a state of flow. And what happens is when you're not being interrupted, which is why a lot of us work between Christmas and New Year's, when you're not interrupted, you'll find this happen a lot. You go to work, you sit down, you open up your computer or whatever it is you're working on, you go heads down on it and you work. And then the next thing you know, your stomach is growling, okay? And I was going to shut down the slide for a second there. Your stomach is growling and you look up and it's 3 hours later and you're hungry and you're thirsty and you got a ton of work done. Now, I don't recommend 3 hours, okay? That can be bad. It lowers your blood sugar, it has an impact on your brain, and a whole bunch of bad stuff. But you know what I'm talking about, okay? And this takes practice. You have to do a couple things. You have to discipline yourself not to interrupt yourself. You have to discipline yourself and the environment around you to not interrupt you when you're in these time boxes. And you can be in a time box with other people too, right? If you're on a Scrum team, and if you've ever had a class with me, you know how I am about collaborating teams. Radical collaboration. 2, 3, 4 people can be working on one thing together in a time box. Nothing else, no interruptions, no side conversations. Just focus. It makes a huge difference. And when that timer finally hits 0, the next piece of discipline, stop what you're doing, walk away, come back and start your next time box after an appropriate break. You'll find it makes all the difference in the world. Okay, let me bring that slide back up. There we go. Good. Okay. I have, over the years, consulted for companies around the world. And one of the things that those companies, one of the things about all those companies really stood out for me, and that is when there's poor leadership, people are disengaged, they're stressed, they're unhappy, okay? But when there's good, strong leadership, people are engaged, they're inspired, they're trusted, they're happy, they're having fun, okay? This is what the Leadership Edge is all about. The training system, as you can see on the slide, is broken down into 8 4-hour sessions. Each presented over a Wednesday afternoon. In these sessions, we're going to talk about things like visionary leadership, inspirational leadership, attention focusing techniques, but we're also going to talk about motivating employees, building teams, leading an environment that is safe for innovation and experimentation. You're going to learn literally hundreds of things that you can use that can, lost my place there. Hundreds of things that you can use to improve your own personal productivity and how to teach those skills to your employees and your coworkers so they can start doing it too, right? Everybody's a leader, not just the people that need to lead. You'll learn how to get people and teams to work together to accomplish great things. And you'll learn all of this in a training system that will also give you time to take the skills that we're talking about, take them back to work, use them, practice them, and even evaluate your performance. You'll learn skills that you can use for yourself to change your life, that can change your work, your business, your career, and yes, even the world. In each session, I'm going to lead a conversation about some topic in leadership, usually a couple topics in leadership that and like I said, you can see them listed on the slide there. From the fundamental challenges of leadership to employee engagement, empowerment, emotional intelligence, continuous learning, on and on and on. At the end of each session, we will also talk about the homework that you're going to take back with you. Wow, I keep losing my place. I'm sorry about that. And we'll talk about the homework you're going to take with you that you want to complete before the next session. And of course, when we start the next session, we'll talk about that homework and go over what you learned. The typical homework is going to ask you to try a new skill and evaluate your effectiveness. Some of the homework also asks you to be very introspective. Why do you want to do this? How have you been doing it? What would you want to improve? Why do you think you're behaving that way? Some of the homework can be tough, okay? You have to be really, really honest with yourself. But honestly, I think you're all up to it, okay? Prior to the first work session, the students will be sent a handbook that will be used as a guide for the entire experience. The handbooks are used during the sessions. They will keep you fully engaged during the lecture, and they also give you room for notes and all of the homework. And right now, I can tell you that the workbook that we're putting together is a bit over 250 pages. There's a ton of information in there, and I think you're going to find it all very, very valuable. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. And also invite you to reach out to me if you have any specific questions about the material and the content. But that said, I'll do two things. Number one, thank you again for spending the last 45 minutes or so with me. And then also invite you to ask any questions that you might have about anything I talked about, or the session series, or anything else that might be on your mind about this topic.
Wow. I'll just say thank you before the question starts, and give people a moment to get their questions formed. But this was an awesome presentation with lots of good little nuggets for us to think about as we move forward in our day and in what we do. So those of you who are on the call know I did post within the chat the link to the larger session, the training session that starts in September, as well as that one question that we had mentioned in the beginning of it. So if people could take a moment just to fill that out and kind of let us know, did we hit that mark? And, you know, if there's anything else that we can do to make this presentation a better one when we come back in September. So I will open it now. I'm hoping there are some questions, or at least some comments from those of you who are sitting on this call.
I guess if no one else bites, I'll go first.
Okay.
So a question for you, Jim.
Yeah.
A really good presentation. Thank you very much for it.
Thank you.
But you mentioned between like context switches, between going from A to B and back from B to A, taking 23.5 minutes, I think is what you said roughly.
Yep.
And you also talked about, you know, basically setting yourself a time box, 30 minutes. Once the 30 minutes ends, go give yourself a break. And I was just curious about like what the difference is, I guess, between a context switch and those breaks, and like what is too far in the break to make it so that when you come back to it, you're actually wasting time trying to get back into the time box.
The biggest difference, Mike, thank you for the question. The biggest difference is that the typical office worker today is interrupted once every 3 to 5 minutes. So we barely get the opportunity to get back into the context that we're in before we're getting interrupted again, right? And think about that. When I talk about interruptions, all those things that I talked about before, your phone buzzing, your phone ringing, stuff that appears on your computer, people coming to your office, every 3 to 5 minutes. So you never even get an opportunity to get into the full flow of what you're trying to do before you're getting pulled into another direction. And it doesn't have to be something you have to go take 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes to do. Once you're interrupted, you're interrupted. And getting back is really hard to do. What the time boxes do is they create a nice negotiation, a balancing point between limiting the number of interruptions that you're going to allow yourself to entertain over a period of time, while also recognizing that the brain doesn't like to stick on one topic for more than about 90 to 120 minutes, at which point we start to overtire and the brain starts to get a little sluggish, and you need that break. So I mean, you're right. Technically, when one time box ends and then we go take a break and we come back and we start another one, we are performing a context switch. But instead of doing a context switch that's then interrupted by another context switch that's interrupted by another one every 3 to 5 minutes, we're going to control it and get more practical, real productivity, taking breaks when it makes sense physically and mentally, rather than being driven and dragged around by the environment we're working in.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks again. Thanks for asking. Yeah, there have been some amazing studies done on stuff like that. Even the state of flow, which is an actual state that the brain engages in when you go heads down on something and you just engage for hours. Part of the brain is, I'm super simplifying, but it's called the attention distraction system. And it's one of the reasons why you can drive down the road, not pay attention to the drive because you've done it 100 times, but still hit the brake without realizing it when a squirrel runs in front of your car. There's always a part of your brain that is perusing the environment, audio, sound, smell, vision, everything. When we enter that state of flow and we become really hyper productive, your brain shuts that down. And over a short period of time, that's okay. Over a long period of time, that can cause some real problems because it also shuts down your time sense. It shuts down awareness of physiological changes, blood sugar, hunger, all sorts of fun things like that. So again, we're also finding the happy medium between getting too focused and not being focused enough. When you look around a lot of organizations today, everybody's interrupt driven. So when you put all those facts together, you start to realize why, while utilization as a metric, which is a useless metric, but while as a metric it doesn't show the problem, but if you can actually look at focus time uninterrupted, you probably don't even have to measure it. Just listen to your developers tell you that they can't get work done because they keep getting interrupted by something, and you'll see what I mean.
Any
Other
other
thoughts?
I just had one.
Yeah.
Oops.
No, you can go, Ryan.
Oh, it's actually Bill.
Ah, hi, Bill.
Bill,
Yeah.
you can go.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thanks, Jim, and this is, I think, good stuff. I do wonder if you're aware of the values that Siemens Healthineers has put together. There's 7 values deployed throughout the organization, and the thing that I found very interesting is what you said about Disney, because we have a lot of employees, right? And some employees, they really are living the values, and they're good values, things like listening more than you talk, and being respectful for other employees and everything. And there are other people that I think they just think they're something that management did because they needed to do something. And I'm wondering how you think as a leader you can get people to actually engage those values. If there's any tricks you have in your mind there, because following them yourself is setting an example is of course one, but is there some, you talked about how important the values are. How do you get people to actually embrace them and actually internalize them and change their daily behavior? Do you have a trick on that?
Well, yeah. When it comes to values are like visions, because goals are out there and you see it, and missions can be depending on how you use it. But values are like visions. If they're not, tip one is they got to be repeated. Out of sight, out of mind. Okay, and really, it's more than just sight. It's kind of like out of context, out of mind. They got to be repeated. So one of the things that you need to do as a leader is you need to look at those visions, and you might need to do this on a regular basis, because if they're not repeated for you, they're also no good. But the tip number one is you got to look at those visions on a regular basis. Values on a regular basis, and connect them to what your employees are currently doing. In other words, what should your employees be doing? What should you be doing right now that exemplifies the value of integrity? You know what? That's probably a bad example. The value of being innovative or being collaborative. Okay, I apologize for that one. I don't like integrity as a value, because I think if you have to state that I want my employees to act truthfully and with integrity, you're hiring the wrong people. So I think some values just aren't worth stating. But so let's take the example of innovation. We have a value. We want to be innovative. Okay, but you got to connect that word to what your team is doing every single day. And where the rubber's gonna meet the road on that one is, let's say you're with your team, maybe you're using Scrum and they're at a sprint review and they're trying to, sprint planning, and they're trying to figure out, to solve this particular problem, there are a number of solutions that we could use. And so they list out 3 or 4 pretty good solutions to solve this problem. And you're looking at it and you're saying, you know what, that's all pretty fundamental, basic stuff. I'm not seeing anything innovative there. Is this a good time to innovate? And if it is, why aren't we thinking about innovating? And as a leader, as a coach, you're going to have to keep doing that over and over and over again. Is that solution innovative? Is this the right time to innovate? Are we making the right decisions? And when you start doing that, what's going to happen is your team's going to start to realize, number one, that's what you're going to say next. So instead of you saying it, let's just do it. That's actually what you want. And eventually, the reality is it's going to have your team thinking, hey, is this the right time to innovate? And how could we innovate? What could we do here? So in other words, you need to take the words and connect them to the work that a particular team is doing right now. And of course, as that work changes, you need to change how you make that connection. Eventually, what's going to happen is your team will begin to make that connection, but you will never stop doing it as a leader, okay? It's got to be part of what they're thinking. So yeah, I used the example of Disney. They have those 4 values: safety, courtesy, show, and effectiveness, or efficiency, sorry. And you go to any Disney employee and you ask them, what are the 4 keys? They call them the 4 keys. And they will not only list all 4 of them, they will list them in that order. Why? Because they are constantly discussed. They are frequently repeated. And as a result, they are constantly being used again and again and again. And the cool thing about value and values, when properly connected to the employee's behavior, is it allows the employees to start making decisions without having to check with the boss. I mean, because honestly, they're the ones doing the work. They're the ones that know the product. If they have questions, they can always ask. But they should never have questions around, is it okay for us to do this? Or maybe they should, but not very often. So yeah, tip number 1 is, because I'm blabbering now. Tip number 1 is you got to connect the vision to the values to the work. And tip number 2 is you got to be out there repeating it and exemplifying it and showing your team how innovation is a part of what they should be doing right now. Even if they decide this isn't the type of time to be innovative, at least they're thinking about it. I hope that answered your question, Bill. I kind of went off on a tangent a little bit there.
No, I really, for me, the takeaway is simple. The values are like the vision. They have to be used daily and reminded daily so that people internalize the values, and it's just natural for them.
Yeah. Something else.
There was an interrupt.
Oh, cool. Something else you could do. It may sound rather pedantic, but in a team meeting, in a group meeting, you might start the group meeting by picking a value and saying, who wants to talk about examples over the last month where we were innovative, where we, and pick your value, the value of the month. Because again, it's all about keeping it in the forefront of their minds and showing them how to connect it to what they do. Okay. I'm going to stop talking and give other people a chance.
Creo said, did you have a question or comment that you wanted to put out?
I'm going to let Ryan go because I thought you're like, no, you can go. Jim, thank you so much. This was fantastic. I think one of the things that I'm curious about within leadership is adapting to your team, right? Because everybody needs different motivation. Everybody needs something different. Yep. And what is the role of a coach or leader within a team to motivate employees where they are and how they need it, right? Yep. It was my experience that an old boss liked to celebrate with a fist bump when something was good, and he did the fist pump with another employee, another teammate, and it was like, whoa, that's right. It's different. How do you motivate them, knowing how diverse and different everybody's motivations are?
So there's a couple things in the question you just asked. One is, how do you act as a leader? And it's a good thing to be light when it's appropriate to be light. Nothing wrong with that. You can have fun too. And I think, in fact, if you're too serious and firm and unwavering in your seriousness, everyone else around you is probably going to be, and they're going to be keyed up and stressed at the same time. So it's fine to be happy, to be loose, to be having a good time. Of course, if something serious is happening, then be serious, because you don't want to come off as being flippant. The thing with motivation that you really got to understand as a leader, because the big mistake that a lot of leaders and a lot of companies make is they say, I'm going to motivate you, right? This is going to be motivational. I'm going to motivate my employees. That'll never work. Motivation is a completely internal experience, and different people are motivated by different things. So one of the most important things that you can do as a leader, and as a coach for that matter, is sit down with all of your employees, like you probably already are doing in like status meetings and performance updates and things like that, and talk to them about what motivates them. Some people are motivated by learning things. Other people are motivated by expressing and teaching things. Some are motivated by building new things. Others are motivated by completing tasks. Some are motivated by being very, very meticulous in what they do, and others are motivated by getting out of the office and having some free time. Your job as a coach is to understand, and we talk about this in one of the modules, to understand what are the 3 major motivators for each employee, and they will be different and they can change. Find out what motivates each employee and then connect the work to the motivation. So for example, if you have an employee that loves to teach others, to show others what to do, right, how to do something, that's one of my motivators, by the way, obviously, is to help other people learn new skills. Then you want to, as much as possible, get that employee into a position where they can do just that, show people how to do things. Maybe they're coaching new employees. Maybe they're mentoring new employees. Maybe they simply want to transfer into a group where that's what they do, is train other employees. And maybe you can even hold it out there as a reward. If you can help me get this done, then you're mentoring the next employee that comes on the team. This is something that I'll do for you because I want to give you something that you want to do. So the key there is you got to understand as a leader, it's not about motivating an employee. It's understanding what they're motivated by, and then connecting the work that they do to their motivational keys.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for all of this information, Jim. I look forward to seeing folks back on the 29th of September for this training session. I know that there were a few teams that were here. If you decide that you're interested in attending and you're going to come as a team, please reach out to me. I can help you with facilitating that a little bit easier. I will put my email into the chat. You can reach out, or if you're not a member of the Tech Collective, but you're interested in becoming a member, I would be happy to speak with you about that as well. So thank you all. I'm sorry that we occupied a little bit extra of your time this morning, but hopefully it was very informative and well spent time for everyone. So enjoy the rest of your day. Siemens, thank you so much for joining us from far away, middle of the US. So have a wonderful day. Thanks so much, Jim.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.